Hello, everyone. My name is Marcella Walsh, Conference Content Coordinator at AVIXA, and welcome to our second installment of the Digital Signage Power Hour. Today's webinar topic is Solving New Access Control Challenges. I'm joined today by Annette Sandler, Director of Content Development at AVIXA, and today's speakers, Florian Rotberg, Managing Director at Invitus, Stefan Scheiker, Partner at Invitus, Dave Haynes, Founding Editor at 16Nine, Ben Reynolds, VP of Business Development at StrataCache, Jay Leedy, Director of Business Development at Diversified Digital Media Group, Chuck Lewis, VP of Business Development and Sales at Palmer Digital Group, and Beth Warren, SVP Marketing and Retail Practice at Creative Realities. Before I hand over the presentation to Annette and Florian, there are a few housekeeping items. For those viewing today live, the webinar qualifies for 1 CTS, CTSD, and CTSI RU credit. Please allow 5 to 7 business days to view on your transcripts. For any issues, please email webinars@avixa.org. The webinar will be approximately 45 to 60 minutes, and all attendees will be placed on mute. If you have questions during the presentation, please enter them into the Q&A window only, so today's moderator can address them at the end of the webinar. Please do not enter questions into the chat window. To access the Q&A window, simply move your cursor to the bottom of your live stream video box to locate the Q&A icon, click on it, and type away. You will have access to this recorded webinar at avixa.org/webinars within about 5 business days. Now to Annette.
Thank you, Marcella. I'm very excited for our second Digital Signage Power Hour, brought to you today by AVIXA, Invitus, and 16Nine. And I just want to say thank you to Florian, Stefan, and Dave for partnering with AVIXA to bring these in-depth digital signage conversations to everyone in our new virtual setting. We have more great conversations with Florian and Dave lined up for June during InfoComm 2020 Connected, taking place from June 16th to 18th. We'll cover topics during InfoComm 2020 Connected, including the role of platforms, working with content creators, new market opportunities for smart displays, and data-driven digital signage. So just like our virtual event today, registration for InfoComm 2020 Connected is free for all attendees, and you will earn RUs for the education sessions that you attend. So we hope to see all of you there. Now I'll turn it over to Florian and Stefan for the market update on digital signage.
Thank you, Annette, and welcome everyone. Stefan, Florian, we are from Invitus in Munich, Germany, and we hope for the next 60 minutes we can give you some interesting insights. And as many of you may be aware of, we in Europe are already a little bit ahead of North America, so we are ready for the past 5 weeks. Some of the stores are already open, and so we can share some of the experience how retailers over here in Europe are using digital signage and sensors and various technologies to manage access to the stores. So we hope you enjoy it, and we hope you join us today, not only for getting RUs, but also to learn something, because we have fantastic information for you and a really fantastic panel, which Dave will later host. So to start off with, we want to give you for the next 10 to 15 minutes a few ideas, a few insights about digital signage in COVID-19 days. And to start off with, just some photos and just some of the solutions which are currently implemented over here. On the left top corner, you see one of the biggest consumer electronics stores. They operate a few hundred stores within Europe, and it's called Media Market Saturn. It's a German chain, and they place these digital screens in front of their stores. And as most of them, some sensors are built in, and it's a pretty basic thing. You have seen it, I'm sure, all over the world. Quite simple. It counts people, and when the certain limit is reached, it says stop. And once people leave the store again, then obviously the counting starts again, and you can enter the store. And our experience with this is that in some store formats and some cities, it's necessary also to integrate a speaker. Because some of them tend not to see the sign and just, go into the store anyway. So on really busy days, you still will need some security guards there to make sure that not too many people come in the store. And also tailgating is a challenge. When a whole family or whole group comes, only one person is allowed to enter. It's important that somebody manage that. On the bottom left-hand corner, you see a typical screen in one of the big grocery stores over here. It's a big discounter, and they decided, like many other retailers, that they want to keep the signs. So for them, it's not just a temporary thing, but a permanent installation. Mm-hmm. So they mounted them quite well from the ceiling, and all the cables and everything have been done quite nicely, because I said once COVID-19 is over, and hopefully, you know, that's less than a year, but we don't know. We expect, you know, many more months to use the system. Then they can, you know, turn the system over to a full digital signage system. And it's not only us, but most of them in the world really believe, you know, unfortunately, you know, COVID-19 will come back, maybe in smaller things, but we need to be prepared for that. On the bottom right-hand corner, you see a simple solution, but what's interesting about this is all done from Samsung. So the other ones are done with integrators who have, you know, used their software and just some standard screens. But Samsung now introduced their own full solution. It was first initiated by Samsung Switzerland, and it's basically the same technology as the other ones, but everything on Magic Info, so it's everything in one thing. And for us, it's quite interesting to see that one of the display vendors is really offering a full end-to-end solution. Obviously, not all integrators like that. But not only retail, but especially quick service restaurants, and many of you have probably seen it on Dave's website this morning. But this is McDonald's. This is McDonald's Netherlands, and they're just trying out different things of managing crowds in the post-COVID-19 era. And as you may be aware, in Europe, 70%, 70, so 2/3 of the people go inside the restaurant, and only 1/3 use drive-through. It's the other way around in North America. So the restaurant on-premise sales is very, very, very important for them. And it's down by more than 40%. So for them, it's pretty tough currently. They're looking of ways of integrating now and bringing people back in the store. And you see stickers on the floor, because we need to be 6 feet apart. So to make it very simple, because we found out that just, you know, making blocks and squares on the floor, it's not always so simple to understand. So it's really about, you know, having these floor stickers. You have a welcome desk where you need to sanitize your hand, and you will be shown a table. Because you cannot choose your own table, and they need to record your email address and your phone number in case somebody's sick, so they can inform you afterwards. And then the biggest challenge in quick service restaurants are the kiosk terminals. You know, they're very, very important for all the QSR chains. And unfortunately, most of the terminals are too close together, so they need to block them off. And more than half of the terminals are currently not in use. And you need to offer also, you know, protection. So if two people from both sides use them, you need to make like a sneeze protection. So you need to make sure, you know, that two people can use it at the same time. It's a lot of challenge, but that's the only thing we can live with. Hand over to Stefan.
Okay, so as Florian already told you, we're about 5 weeks after reopening of stores, and here you can see some frequency data from one of the busiest high streets in Germany, where during the crisis, during lockdown, we saw about 10% of normal traffic. Right after reopening, that went up to about 45% of normal. And now, after 5 weeks, we are already back to 80 to 90% of normal traffic, or historic traffic. So that went pretty fast. But for retailers, this means the challenge of actually controlling access to their stores. And this is a questionnaire that was sent out to retailers 1 or 2 weeks after reopening, asking for their measures that they took for access control. And two things that really jump out of this is the need for information. That's 93% of all retailers said, okay, we implemented first phase of communication. And the other thing is access control, so actually counting. First reaction was very pragmatic. So most retailers had staff standing in front of their store, or security personnel managing entrance to the stores. Either having an app counting, just having a piece of paper counting, or for supermarkets and things like that, using cards or bags, just limiting the total number of bags or cards to the numbers that were allowed into the store, and using that as a means of limiting access. Interestingly enough, only about half of these retailers said they wanted to use automated access control, which kind of makes sense because automated access control doesn't make sense for everybody. It's especially high-frequency stores, obviously, high-frequency locations where this makes sense. If you have a small store where only 1 or 2 people are allowed into, you obviously don't need a digital solution for that.
Yeah, and it's a really the high footfall, the high traffic categories like grocery stores and drugstores, as well as fast fashion. So the Zara, the Inditex, all of these guys, for them really makes sense. For the rest of them, it really doesn't make sense. So when we talk about digital signage and opportunity, it's really about, you know, these certain sectors of the retail market where it's really necessary.
And I'm having been to the city recently, we see many more digital access controls being implemented right now. This was a snapshot right after opening. And there's also a reaction from the market to the different needs of retailers. So we basically see 5 different types of solutions being implemented, from a very basic entry-level solution, basically just consisting of a sensor and some kind of red-green light, over to basic level solutions using a sensor and a tablet for staff. Then the small display solutions with a tablet size display, all across to the digital A-frames, so mobile solutions, and fixed installations, really nicely done. So we see a wide spectrum in terms of solutions. We see a wide spectrum in terms of sensors that are being used, from cameras to heat cameras to 3D cameras to just infrared and laser counters. So many variations, and I think we can have the discussion later in the panel also about that. So wide spectrum of solutions that we see there. In terms of ROI, you see 50% wanted a digital solution for that, 50% still use staff. And we did the calculation for Germany, but it probably would look very similar for North America. So if you just assume digital A-frame solution costs you about 2,000 to 3,000 euros or dollars, security staff over here would cost you about 3,500 euros a month. In North America, it's probably a bit less in dollar terms. So payback period for such a solution would be somewhere between 1 and 2 months. And as we expect these solutions to be around for at least 6 to 8 to 12 months, you obviously have a good ROI on that one. So, but it's not all about counting. I mean, there's a reason why some of these solutions use screens, and Florian, you can probably talk a bit about the other uses of not just showing red and green signs and the entrance numbers, but also of using these screens in different ways.
Yeah. Thank you, Stefan. What's really interesting is it's not only communicating who's allowed to enter or not and having a traffic light system, but it's really about building consumer confidence. Because consumers are afraid, they're anxious of going back in the store and touching products, and they just don't feel confident in going to stores, to brick and mortar stores. So currently, many of the retailers are using signage, existing signage, as well as the new entrance signage in a mixture to really build up confidence. And because consumers are feeling a form of denial, of anxiety, dread and hope, and now it's a real time to really build this deeper relationship and to build up the mood for shopping again. So this is a typical example, and we just want to show you it's not a technology game. Many of the digital signage industry just feel very comfortable with the AV industry. Oh, it's about great screens, big sensors and everything. It's really not, because retailers don't wake up in the morning to think, I need another screen, I need another sensor or so. It's really, you know, For them, it's just pain and just want to have it as nice as possible. And for us, it's always, can you reuse maybe the whole thing afterwards? And this example, we create this together with Swissplay, which is part of a big Swiss retail furniture company. And this is a full flexible system which can be reused and rebuilt afterwards. And it looks nice. There's sensors built in. You can change it, move it around, everything. All the cables are integrated and it looks quite nice. So it feels part of the whole shop fitting and not as something, which has just been, put there and looks ugly also. So it doesn't have to be ugly. It can be part of the whole shop design. So we have 3 forms of communications we found across all the stores. One is the mandatory messaging, the mandatory communication. That's about compliance. It's about mainly numbers of shoppers allowed, mask regulations, which are very important, sanitation rules, pay contactless, avoid touching merchandise, wear masks, disinfect hands, all of these messages. This is regulatory stuff. You need to have it, and it's all over the place. And you see the photo on top, and this is typical. All the shop windows are full with posters and signs and everything. And that's what everyone has to do. But what's more interesting, to build up confidence and to make people feel good again, it's a feel-good communication, to put them in a buying mood again. So it's about, we care about you. Don't worry, we take care of your health and wear protective masks. Please also do it. So it's not about, you have to wear a mask, but it's about we wear it, please also do it. You consider it. Keep calm, wear your mask and buy sneakers. That's a nice one, huh? Or don't worry, we're wearing masks and disinfect all surfaces regularly. And that's quite interesting. You see cleaning crews all over the place. In the past, they were only let in the store, once the store was closed. Now you see them with bright orange vest. And it's part of the communication strategy to make it visible that we are cleaning wherever we can, and especially touch screens. And we had this call, our first power hour a month ago was about touch screens and how to keep them clean and everything. So that's a very important thing. And the third one is emotional communication. Welcome back. Great to see you again. We've missed you. And also buy local, safe jobs and don't buy at Amazon. That's also an important part, obviously. So these are just some photos, some examples how brick and mortar retail really adapted to the new situation. So in the beginning, retail space was limited. So it was very important that you made the most out of it and people had to line up. They still need to line up in certain times, when it's very busy. You have to need floor markers on the floor to guide people. Sometimes it looks more complicated and people just go in straight lines, obviously. But it looks nice on paper. And then in the center photo on the bottom, it was quite interesting because this was a big fashion department store and most of their floors were closed. Only the ground floor was open. So they had to move some of the fitting rooms downstairs and people, they put them in front of the elevator, which weren't able to be used anyway. And they opened the elevator doors so you could use the mirrors inside the elevator and had your own private, little larger fitting room there. It was quite interesting. And that's another one, just different photos, and the restaurant on the left top was quite interesting because this is a menu board screen and they dismantled it because they told us, we don't have money, we need to do something. So they just took one of the existing screens, put them right in front of the shop window and you saw the cables and keyboards and everything, but they were quite practical about it. And that's what we saw many things. And when we talk with retailers, many of them say, we don't have the money, we don't have the budget to buy hundreds of thousands of new screens, How can we reuse existing technology? And that's quite interesting when we talk and discuss later what kind of sensors make sense and everything. We often talk with retailers and we first try to analyze what's their installed base. Do you have already CCTV cameras? Can we reuse them? Do you have already other forms of sensors? Does it make sense that we can integrate them? And they're very open, very, very positive about it when you tell them you don't have to, redo everything. We can use some of the existing stuff you have already and try to offer you a few solutions.
Probably just a quick one on this. Reopening is really a bigger challenge for retailer. It's not just about counting people at the entrance. It's really counting, it's communicating to the consumers, but it's also managing crowds within the store. It's also making sure that people wear masks over here, so comply to rules and regulations. So it's a much more complex issue than just counting people at an entrance line. And for that, different sensor technologies, different display technologies and locations really play an important role for retailers to be able to reopen.
Yeah, and mask detection is very important. As over here, retailers have to pay huge fines if their customers don't wear masks. So they use existing cameras to detect if people don't wear a mask, and then they have a PA system and announcement to say, please wear your mask. So that's very important. Again, reusing existing technology. Good. And that was just a short introduction, and hopefully to see you all online, unfortunately only in a month from now at Infocom Connected, and hopefully also next year in Orlando. And if you come to Europe, obviously we hope to see you in Barcelona for the first time in February. Over to you, Dave.
All right, great presentation, guys. I write about digital signage all the time. For the last several years, I have heard all kinds of vendors and market analysts, everybody else, talk about customer experience and how important customer experience is. And now when I go out shopping, I'm seeing hacks everywhere. Pylons, sheets of cardboard, shopping carts put in the way of things to block entrances and so on. And Beth, I'm curious from your perspective, and take yourself off of mute. I love those little icons to show that. Yeah, there you go.
Here I am.
How are retailers looking at all these challenges that they now face in terms of limiting the number of people coming in? I mean, I'm seeing cashiers working now as bouncers outside of Home Depots and things like that. They can't possibly see this as a long-term solution.
You know, I think that it's very evident when retailers aren't thinking through how to choreograph and coordinate this on site. I'm very impressed by the way some of the essential retailers have handled themselves, namely Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. If the group is familiar with those important grocery outlets, they have really taken deliberate effort to stage an entrance, to recast the journey so that not only is there social distancing or shopper distancing, but that the things that you really like about shopping are still kept intact. So a little surprise and delight, a little impulse here and there. Because in this time, people are way more concerned with getting in and getting out quickly. You know, it's not a browsing mindset. It is a mission mindset. So the stores that are gearing their inventory, their presentation of merchandise, and their signage, and their technology for that matter, they're going to really deliver, I think, on the CX, on customer experience, and making sure that that is consistent from location to location, because that's what breeds confidence and comfort.
Right.
And Dave, just to add, in the past was all about, improving dwell time. We wanted to spend customers as much time as possible. Now it's all about, how fast can you get people through it.
Absolutely.
That's very frustrating. For the past year, we built all these experiences and these great zones with sofas and great ambient and everything.
That's right. It was about slowing down, right? It was once about slowing them down and holding their attention, but now it's about getting them through and getting that list done and taking shortcuts and hacks to make sure that they're getting their essential needs and getting out as quickly as they came in. And that's how we're adding value, and that's how retailers are adding value.
And the really good solutions are flexible enough to make this transition back and forth.
Absolutely.
For now, it's all about speeding up, but we will see times again when dwell time becomes more important. So that's why we like the solutions that actually can be used flexibly. So now, just moving people through, later on, you show different stories on the screens, and you tell different stories to keep people in the store and to get back that feeling of having an experience in the store.
One thing I'd like to see a little bit more of, which I'm surprised I haven't as much as I expected to, is with all the curbside pickup happening, the connection between buy online, pickup in store, and buy online, pickup at curbside. So BOPIS and BOPUC. And what is the relationship with digital to getting that flagged and signed and people driving up and packing and going. I haven't seen that frictionless handoff as much as I would like. So I feel like that's an area that retailers can I think maybe focus on to really upgrade, because that will actually help throughput in general and just, connect online and offline in a more seamless way.
Mm-hmm. Jay, and you're on mute as well, Jay. There you go.
Not anymore.
There you go. Both CRI Best Company and your company Diversified have had new products that have come out recently that are all about access control and things like thermal sensors. That's introducing technology and somewhat, I don't want to say invasive because that's definitely not the right term, but it's somewhat disruptive into your normal thing that you do when you walk into a store or to a public building. What's the thinking around that? And do you really have to kind of manage the experience that all of a sudden you feel like you're entering a facility instead of a store?
Yeah, I think all of it, in our view, centers around communication at the end of the day and conveying a sense of confidence and a degree of security that there's a measure initially that's being taken as people move into spaces, whether it's to their own work environment, into a retail environment, and tying into a number of other mechanisms that enable that to be potentially automated so that people can more confidently move into space without bouncers at the door, without this kind of more intimidating type of environment, which is a bit disruptive and feels uncomfortable. And I think that's where, as Florian and Stefan had illustrated, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of reprogram the customer to going into a retail environment as well as to employees going into spaces. I see these kind of broadening out to, certainly transportation facilities where, we're looking more and more towards integrated control systems, whether it's access control or just throughput and flow control that can help to, enable some social distancing automatically without people having to kind of go around and essentially be hall monitors at the end of the day. And that's really what kind of how we're positioning the solutions that that we're exploring is really, this is, the beginning of or a complement to an existing communication strategy that may be already in place, and really just, and another digital signage endpoint at the end of the day.
Right. Ben, your company Stratacache and one of the companies, the group of companies, Walkbase, that you spend a lot of time with. Is the integration side of this really important, that you've got different systems that are kind of stitched together, as opposed to what I'm seeing in a lot of the emails that come in every day are things, very individual products, and you just put this thing in and you're done. And that doesn't strike me, particularly for any kind of a larger building or retailer, that one little thing is going to solve the problem. There's more to it.
Yeah, I would agree, Dave. I think there's a couple things the way to think about that. Is think about it is how can we use tech and data to make a better customer experience, and how can we value the customer's time? Beth mentioned the order online, pick up in store. Well, that's going crazy right now in grocery and also in the QSR business. I mean, drive-thru has always been big here in North America, but their delivery business has shot up and things like that. So how are they managing all that stuff? And being able to tie that together. So imagine, just using data and thinking of the consumer is like, I can tie that data to a digital screen, make it very friendly at the entrance, but I could also use that API or data stream to a mobile device and think about, hey, my local Home Depot looks like it's close to occupancy, or it's got a 10-minute wait. That'd be great information for me as a customer, for me to manage my time. And imagine if every retailer did that. Or Jay talked about transportation. As we get back to travel, manage if I'm just in an airport lounges, and I know, how many people are in an airport lounge at any given time. I can help them manage the occupancy and things like that. So it's using things to tie it together. So you've got things, to your point, Dave, you got things like counters, you got things like sensors, you got screens, obviously the cloud, you've got a lot of different integration points, and it's a solution that I think as folks start to think about it, will and and to Florian's point before, I think it's going to be well beyond just the next 3 months in terms of how they use this stuff.
Oh, yeah. Chuck, for your, sorry, Chuck, for your company, you make custom enclosures, all kinds of different enclosures. A lot of the outdoor stuff has been around wayfinding and street furniture, that sort of thing. Are you seeing that demand shift as to Beth's point around curbside pickup and information that has to be pushed outside of a store to inform people? That are you hearing from customers wanting that sort of thing now?
Well, yeah, we've seen, as a company in whole, we've seen an uptick in outdoor, specifically, Dave, you had just said. Funny you had mentioned that. We had a conversation just today with some end users where a lot of the restaurants are starting to prepare for next month to reopen. And I think all of us know right now, that I guess geographically, it doesn't matter where you're at in the United States, they're going to have about 25% capacity. So as the summer months come, people want to go outside, they're going to want to go to the restaurants, and where do they sit while they wait to be called? We've been asked by many people, many end users and partners, hey, do you have a solution for outdoor to show the menu at a restaurant, for example, with speakers where they can be called? Like that was a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, and it actually has become a real product. So something that at one point never existed has now become something that's brand new to us.
Mm.
Chuck, that's really interesting, because over here in Europe, you need to register now. You have to register with your name and your email address when you go to a restaurant, so they can, they can trace you if somebody got sick or so afterwards. And so you need these digital touch points. And even printed menus are in some parts of the country not allowed anymore in restaurants. So you need to digitize them. So it's really about connecting. It's all about online and offline. So it's not only about putting outdoor totems, which is nice, but it's not all about it. It's always a mix of having something on your mobile system and on your mobile phone, having screens there, and making the best out of the waiting time. That's really, really important. Yeah.
There's that omni-channel word again.
I was just going to say,
Right.
We're seeing a huge spike in the interest in driving phone or driving screens that have traditionally been touch or may have other interactive components through QR codes that can be driven through a personal device. We're really seeing the potential for adoption of personal devices becoming a remote control to the world now, with a lot of technologies that already have that embedded to enable that, as well as potentially a rise in adoption of gestural technologies as well through LiDAR or stereoscopic cameras, in which, we very quickly figured out a language in communicating with our phones through touch because of the iPhone and, the slew of devices that came after that. Those same kind of form languages, I would say, are likely going to rapidly increase in gestural interaction technologies as well.
And funny enough, people are scared of touching public screens, but they never clean their own phones.
So true. So true. Somehow the device is just an extension of you, and it's as clean as I am, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But hopefully you don't take it to the shower.
Exactly. But I agree that personal navigation tool is going to be critical, and we will see more of that for sure.
And over here, we see increasingly also scheduling apps. As you referred to, Ben, earlier, it's not only showing, Home Depot's nearing capacity, but also really to be able to make appointments at a store.
Booking ahead of time.
And you can go there and then have a time slot where you can enter the store. Absolutely. And you don't have to wait in line. And these kinds of solutions, not for all the stores, but for some stores, this really makes sense. And it's really making smart use of your mobile phone then.
I had a question from one of the listeners about, is this a situation where you have a lot of manufacturers and vendors, solution providers, introducing products and looking for problems to solve? Or are you hearing from your customers that we have a problem, please help us, and that's where these products are coming from when it comes to things like access control?
We have heard from customers that, especially the labor savings, and this being, for the bigger customers, we're having to staff folks at the entities, and being able to do that more automatically is a potential, because they're they see that as a potential savings, and then all the benefits you get of communication, customer experience, and things like that. But we started down this path when our customers started kind of asking, "Hey, can you help us address this solution?"
It strikes me as it's challenging for some of the things like what Florian and Stefan were describing with these digital A-frames, which are very simple sensors. How do you deal with larger environments like a bank, like a big box store with multiple entrances, and start to read the actual density in the store? Because I'm seeing things even at a Home Depot where you have somebody with a walkie-talkie talking to somebody else with a walkie-talkie saying, 2 people just left, you can let 2 people in. This seems really labor intensive, and you got to think with computer vision and AI, machine learning and cameras and everything else, got to be a better way, but at the same time, it can't be a $250,000 solution either.
No, but there exactly. We often look at what kind of installed base is there already. Do they have cameras already? You can use existing cameras and try to connect the data. Obviously, you need to even the digital A-frames, which are mostly used over here, they all connect to a cloud. And you have, if you have many entrances, you obviously need to count all of them. But to be honest, most of retailers currently use only one entrance and one exit, just to make it easier for various reasons, because not always technology works in the beginning, and it's still, the startup phase something. And it's also an issue about, compliance and GDPR, because we have one question here about GDPR in regards to that. And GDPR is a privacy law over here in Europe. It's similar to what you have in California, and some other states are adopting similar things. It's a huge topic. It's a big, big challenge. And to be honest, most of the solutions we see are borderline case if they're GDPR compliant or not. But in the beginning, the government said, just start with it. Very untypical of us in German, because usually we don't do the other way around. But now it's really start something, and then we have to find. So this lunchtime, we went to a restaurant, they had one open book, so everyone had to sign in and his email address and everything. You could see all the addresses, all the information for all the other guests. Obviously, that wasn't GDPR compliant, but these are things which would change. So with some simple hardware, some iPads or some touch screens or so. So it's evolving, but yes, it plays a huge matter.
Mm-hmm. If you're a solutions provider, do you have to think about the liability issues of this? If you're saying, we've got this thermal scanner, we've got this other device that's going to check whether people have masks, is there any kind of a liability risk to a restaurant operator or a solution provider for saying, hey, we have this, use this, and then somebody gets missed and they get inside and they infect the whole store or whatever?
I can take
or
that
somebody
first
in North
stab,
America
Dave,
maybe can
like.
answer that, because over here in Europe, yes.
Yeah, I'll take a first stab at it in saying that, as we've been talking to our clients extensively over the last several weeks, we're very careful to say this is, especially where a thermal scanner is a component as a first line measure, that this is one of multiple measures that will need to be considered with our client stakeholders as a return to work strategy or reopening their businesses. It's not a silver bullet. There's additional courses of action that need to be considered to be 100% safe. And that can entail using specialized cleaning solutions that are anti-pathogen or antibacterial. It can entail, secondary protocols with respect to, a reading that is out of acceptable range, and considering ambient conditions or where the person's coming from. If they're coming from a workout facility, for example, and may show an elevated temperature. So all those things need to be kind of put into place and thought about really as a holistic solution, with some of these solutions being one of a component of those. And we're really trying to be careful in helping to guide our customers towards those considerations.
We guide our clients. We suggest that they spend their time thinking about their secondary or their escalation protocols. So if someone doesn't pass the temperature screening, that there is a very clear process in what happens next. How are they handled? What is the sensitivity measures? What is the level of discretion? Where are they handled? How are they, sort of cordoned off and treated with respect? Because really this is about clearing the majority of people so that we signal that this place is safe to enter and that everybody who has come through is safe to enter. It's a safe place to enter and dwell.
Chuck, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, excuse me. many of you probably have seen a lot of the stuff that we got out there.
Mhm.
Several different designs of temperature testing kiosks. But to your point, David, it's gotten to the point where you've got to be very clear to the end user and the buyers exactly what to expect from an IR sensor. I mean, this isn't a be-all, tell-all. It's not going to find everything. And we actually have gotten to the point where we have a separate document that we send to clients literally explaining how IR sensors work and the differences between standard temperature taking, like in your mouth or your armpit, for example, and IR sensors. Because we all know if you're in a parking lot 100 yards away and it's 30 degrees outside and you walk in the door, you're going to be cold, even though you may have a fever, but 5 minutes later, it's going to show a fever. So it's absolutely necessary for the end user to understand IR technology in terms of measuring body temperature, but then it's very necessary to have a step 2. And something we've actually started to educate our clients on how to do.
I had a question. How important is it to make new technology compatible with legacy equipment like access pass printing, gate door opening, that sort of thing?
Very.
All right, next question.
Don't invest in the other silo.
Very.
And that fits with the next question, why would the company invest into cloud service to address it, when they use it only for a few weeks? It won't be temporary. We believe it will be at least a year, probably longer than that.
Totally.
Unfortunately, we fear, things like COVID-19 or COVID-20 or 21, whatever it's called then, will come back. Unfortunately, Dave, I know we don't like it, but the chances are there. So we need to be prepared. And all the digital stuff we talk about, it has always dual use. So if we don't have COVID-19 anymore, you can use it just for promotions or other things. You have other actions or so. So it's really about this dual use. And
Plug and play.
€1,000, or dollars, after a year, that's fine, So it's anywhere written off then.
David, it's really about what we found, the software-based too. Even though PDG is not a software-based company, we partner with some of the best. Matter of fact, I've seen some of their names pop up on the bottom here. And to your guys' point, we've been asked, and we are currently producing some orders where we have barcode scanners that we put it to the side of our kiosk and opens up the door. We have real-life screens on the opposite side of glass, for example, where the host can see in real life what's going on with the person taking their temperature. Turnstiles, can you scan a badge and open up a turnstile? All of these questions have been asked, and our software partners can absolutely customize and do all of this. So it's very important.
Ben, you were on to make a point?
Yeah, the only point I was going to make was two points. One is Florian mentioned it, but the counting solutions have been around for 10 plus years in terms of just managing traffic. So it's really taking that data and using it for a different use case, and hopefully this case. So I think it's imperative that you look at this at historical stuff. I also think once you have it in the cloud, then now you're able to connect it to the mobile device, to get some of these user experiences as we all think it's going to be more prevalent. So I think it's a real opportunity there to go forward once that happens.
The point, I think you can use the sensor data for all different sorts of purposes. Store analytics is one of the big topics, or was one of the big topics even before the crisis, and it will be a topic also after the crisis. So investment in this kind of technology and sensor technology will help you running your business also in the future, even if you don't show the actual numbers of people in your store on a screen at the entrance. But it's for calculating conversion rates, all of this kind of stuff. You need the sensor technology that's also being used now for access control.
And all of your historical data is useless nowadays because everything has changed. All the data, it's not useless, but all the experience you have and everything, all your operations, everything which worked for the past 10 to 20 years, many of this stuff, you need to rethink and do differently now. And that's so important, to collect as much data as possible where it makes sense, obviously, and get some more actionable insight on this.
I would imagine if you are a end user, as a retailer or somebody who runs some sort of a large facility, you're listening to this and thinking, this is awesome, but I no longer have any budget, or I have very tightened budgets because of everything that's going on and the lack of sales that we're doing, whatever it may be. How significant of a investment is this? And I'm curious, as folks who all sell stuff, have budgets dried up, or is this just something that people who run these kinds of businesses know they have to find the money for if they want to reopen?
I can take that as a first step. So we are seeing that capital is constrained because of the situation that everybody finds themselves in. And so as a result of that, the manufacturers that are bringing these to market find their own capital constrained. We're finding that a number of clients are interested in finance options, whether it's operating leases or as-a-service options. The as-a-service option is really interesting because, as I said, at the end of the day, we see this as being, a digital signage endpoint that should live in the environment as a part of a corporate communication strategy or other communication strategy. So, what then, beyond the initial purpose of considering these devices and these solutions, how are you going to iterate and how are you going to keep them relevant for what becomes our new normal downstream, and hopefully sooner rather than later? As a service enables for incremental services to be added, from content creation to day 2 support packages, professional services, and that can be incrementally over the life of that subscription service. So we're finding that that's really attractive for a number of our clients.
Beth?
We are finding that when we pair our product with a digital signage piece, that bundle actually is adding value right then and there, because not only is it providing an opportunity to temperature check, clear people safely, but it provides end users with an automatic way to communicate that it's a safe space, whether it's the cleansing or cleaning regimen or the mask policy or the staffing policy or any number of content elements that reassure the general public or even the employees that the place is being watched and that it's carefully attended to. That's what drives confidence. It really does.
Got a question about what model of headset am I
Watched.
using? Question from Allison. I don't even know. I think it's Sennheiser. Anyways.
But Dave, people seem to be willing to pay for it. There wasn't any really pushback. We haven't seen pushback with, why do I need digital?
Right.
Quite the opposite. It was, what, that makes a lot of sense, because then I know that alerts that are going to, the person who's on the receiving end of a elevated temperature is also going to be able to then make sure that on the opposite of that communicating to the lobby or the entrance that, hey, everything is okay for you to come in. So they work together.
When you are operating a store and using things like thermal sensors, somebody shows up and they are running a fever, what happens then?
Well, it's according to what their safe space policy is. And most of the products out there are configurable so that it can reflect, protocols based on HR, based on facilities or operational requirements. So,
and where do those come from? Does that come from the CDC or from the company, or? It comes
from the company. And the company is typically following, federal, state, and local guidelines as well. So, we have to rely on them to be switched on. We don't set policy. We don't guide on policy. We just have sort of the architecture that will help them configure according to their policy needs and their compliance requirements and their audit requirements.
Mm-hmm. Ben, you work a lot with QSR, and Florian showed the example of McDonald's and all the things they're doing in there. It's different over in Europe. A lot of the QSR operators in North America, if they have drive-through, 100% of the business is now drive-through. Yeah. But for all those other QSRs, like the Shake Shacks and everybody else that doesn't have drive-through typically, what does their future look like, and how do they handle access with 50% dining capacity and all those things? Is technology an answer for that?
I think it's an enhancement. So I think it goes back to some of your integrated solution you asked about, Dave. So imagine a Chipotle who is doing a pretty good business with the order online and pick up at store. my local, well, they're having me wait and queue outside. And what would be a great experience for me if there was a sign out there that had two things. One, it had a kind of an occupancy, traffic light for me. It's okay, safe to enter. When's the last time they cleaned the store? We're here to help you. And then the other thing is they know that I'm here. And just like, hey, Ben, welcome back. We'll be out in 3 minutes with your order. So I think there's tech solutions that can do both in terms of create a safe, environment and make it seamless and frictionless, but also increase my, value my time, increase my experience, enhance my experience. And so as I start to, it was interesting hearing Florian talk, because I know everybody in North America, we are really behind in terms of opening up. And so, there's going to be a lot of, and as somebody said on the phone, we're going to start at 25% or 50%. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these things go. I think tech can play a role. And again, I don't think it's, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's a 3 months exercise. I really think that's an ongoing way. You have a chance to really enhance the customer experience.
I also wonder about the whole shopper traffic light thing. That can work quite well in a highly orderly society like Germany, but you get to the US where you have people protesting about the simple fact that somebody's telling them to wear a mask. Are they going to pay any attention to a stop and go traffic light outside I'll bring back the Home Depot again?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're never going to get 100% compliance. And I think there was a discussion earlier around like, well, what do you do when somebody's not in compliance, and what are your guarantees for that and things like that? I don't think as a solutions provider, you can ever say, I can guarantee 100% of the time that people are going to obey the traffic light per se, but it is a tool, right? And it's a tool that I think as a customer, and that I know that somebody's valuing my time, I know, and they're valuing my safety, I'm likely to adhere to. I realize here in North America, we see a lot of the protests and things like that, but quite frankly, I've been amazed of how well people adhere to the social distancing and just, it's like, and really followed the guidelines. I'm sure you guys have seen.
I agree.
Mobility trackers from all the locations.
Well, come on down to Georgia. We got a whole other thing going on.
You can go bowling.
If you give people information, my point is like, if you give them the information that they can use to protect themselves and manage their life, then I think you're providing a service to your customer that way. And they can make a choice, whether they enter or not.
At this point, is the ROI important? Or is it just getting something in?
It's always important. Somebody mentioned we're seeing the same thing in terms of constraints on capital and things like that. This retail is a low margin business. It's always, every dollar is always scrutinized.
Mm-hmm. I wonder about
I think beyond retail, even retail and beyond is, where we have an opportunity as a digital signage community to provide more value than some of the other manufacturers that are really purpose-built, only strictly thermal scanning or density management. It's the integration and the ecosystem of a communications platform that's going to help these customers unlock and realize more value downstream than just strictly solving for this one thing that they're looking at right now.
Yeah, I wonder if when this all kind of broke out, there had to be any number of digital signage companies and AV companies that were thinking, oh, dear God, this is really bad. Nobody's going to be buying our stuff anymore. But as time has gone on, you start to realize how important screens are going to be moving forward, and whether they're doing one thing right now, doing access control longer term, they're going to be communicating all the changes that are happening in a store. And Beth, in particular, all about how important experience is and how important reassurance is.
Reassurance, experience, and making it hands-free in a way. So the digital piece, I think we're going to see a resurgence, I think, in a different way than perhaps we have in the past. And we're excited about that, you know, to be able to pivot to keep spaces safe, but also to introduce new technology layers like voice and others, for example, to make spaces responsive, intelligent, and aware. So that, right, so that, you know, important content gets to you clearly and consistently exactly where you need it. So, you know, that's what we're spending our time thinking about, even beyond just a thermal mirror product. It's about how does our knowledge and shopper behavior and retail behavior really take the technology practices that we do and make them smarter.
Open this up to anybody who wants to talk about it. How, as a end user who's looking for budget from the CFO, or you're selling technology, or you're a solutions provider, what's that message that you're bringing in to try to make the case for it? What's this going to do? And, you know, how do you secure the budget?
I think the important thing is I'm starting with a problem for the retailer. It's a really, really complex thing to reopen a store or a facility. That's a really, really complex project because you have to manage processes, you have to manage your staff, you have to manage operations. So there are many, many operational things you have to consider. And when you can make the point that your technology can help them in this process of reopening, and also further down the roads of running their business in a better way, then it's an easy sell. But if you're just trying to push some kind of technology and say, okay, this is a point solution and you need it for access control, it's going to be much tougher. It's really thinking about the retailer or the company's issues, and it's always a combination of process and technology.
And the whole thing is not limited to retail, guys, because we have a question here also in regards to office. It's actually the same challenges we have there. Only a third of the people are allowed to go back to the office. You have to manage crowds. Elevators are a pain. Nobody knows how to manage that. And to rearrange all offices. Meeting rooms don't work. They're limited to 3 or 4 people. In the past, there were 10 or 15 people there. So everything we have discussed in the past 60 minutes or 55 minutes, you can adopt one-to-one or similar to the office world.
Yeah. Like somebody said, everything has changed. Are there any of these solutions tied to automated door systems, like other kinds of, like the things that swing open when you scan your badge?
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah,
I
access
mentioned
control
earlier
systems.
that the software we're working with right now for our temperature testing kiosk actually does that.
So does ours.
A lot of different things.
Yeah, we've got a JavaScript engine that can interoperate with a range of platforms, from email and Active Directory LDAP to visitor management systems and other software platforms, as long as there's an API exposed. And Beth already alluded to it. It depends on the degree to which that work has been done, and there might be a software development lift depending on the platform that we're being asked to integrate with. But that's certainly what most of these solutions are trying to solve for, is automation and access control and visitor management.
That's right, and it can be enabled again with some programming.
Should you be intimidated when people start talking about APIs and JavaScripting and everything else, that, oh my God, this is going to be very complicated and expensive and time consuming? Ben's shaking his head.
No.
APIs is where we're going. Most of your content's coming, that way anyways.
Yeah, it's just data talking to data. It's a port to a port, a hook and a hook. So we should be happy about that. That's a good thing. An API is a great thing. That's what keeps the cost low.
A lot easier to overcome than hardware-based.
Yes, sir. You got it. So that's a good thing.
All right.
Architecture.
We're winding down here. If I could just get a quick comment from each of you about what would be your recommendations to somebody who's being compelled to look at this, or is realizing they need to look at this. What do they do? Where do they start? Chuck.
I found through a lot of feedback from clients that it's really important if, for example, obviously we're a manufacturer, so we manufacture one of many things, temperature testing kiosks. When you look at that, make sure you design it so it can be something else next year, not just a one-trick pony. We really tried to do, because we don't want to waste end users' money. So I would suggest really focus on that. And what is this going to be in a year?
Jay.
Yeah, I'd say the same. And beyond that, do your homework, make sure you're aligned with your stakeholders and factor in how these solutions are going to integrate to deliver the value that Chuck's just mentioned.
Okay, Ben?
I would just add that is there an opportunity to make a more frictionless, seamless environment, maybe with you know, the mobile device and things like that. Where else can you use this information?
Mm-hmm. Beth?
Be agile, test and learn, and refine and iterate. Start small and then scale.
Fine.
And don't forget
German guys.
experiences. Currently, we just talked about operations, and that's basically the focus for the time, but we will change this later on. And experience are very, very important, because otherwise Amazon will win. It's what really sets brick and mortar apart. So it's really, don't forget that. Even nobody talks about it right now, but eventually we will be coming back to that.
All right, Annette, who is hiding, but I think is out there somewhere. Did you want to close things down, or Marcella?
Yes, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. Thank you, Florian, Stefan, Dave, Ben, Jay, Chuck, and Beth, for a very thoughtful discussion. I can see from the comments that it was found to be extremely relevant and helpful. And thank you to our listeners for joining today's webinar, Digital Signage Power Hour, Solving New Access Control Challenges. This recording will be available on avixa.org/webinars within about 5 business days, and your 1 RU credit will be applied to your transcripts within 5 to 7 business days. If you have any questions or issues, please contact webinars@avixa.org. A huge thank you to Florian and guests for helping us learn and understand which technologies can automate and improve the access control process. We hope you enjoyed. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much. You
See you in
too.
4
you.
weeks.
It was great to be here. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.